Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another Final Fantasy XIV dungeon run. Today we're going to be heading down into the Copperbell Mines, and I will be tanking as a Marauder, which you guys have probably gotten used to by now. I've actually been experimenting with other classes. I've been experimenting with Pugilist, Archer, just a bunch of different classes just to try out different things. As a matter of fact, that's probably one of the reasons why I'm still so low in terms of levels. I'm only 28 as of the recording of this video. Actually, at the recording of this video, I was probably even less than 28, but the thing is, I've been experimenting with several classes, and that takes time until I could finally make up my mind. Okay, Marauder is definitely the way that we're going to be going, because I was wondering if I was going to go do the whole tanking thing. I was thinking about doing healing, but healing seems to be fairly simple in Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm not down playing healers. Please don't take it as that. It's just, it is somewhat easier than tanking. I have to say that. At least it seems to me at the start, in the very earlier dungeons, definitely tanking seems to be somewhat more challenging. Maybe in the later dungeons it is actually the other way around. I don't know, but it's like tanking is somewhat in my blood. So I'm gonna keep on doing things I like, and tanking just happens to be one of those things. Now, something that you guys will also notice throughout this particular video is that there's going to be a lot of error messages in the chat box saying Mercy Stroke is not a valid action. That is because I've been working with some macros for my character, and unfortunately this particular dungeon limits your level to 20, and Mercy Stroke is a level 26 ability. So I can't really use Mercy Stroke in this dungeon, so you guys are going to be seeing that particular message pop up over and over and over. You guys just saw a little bit of a jump cut there because someone was a little bit over eager and they dropped the elevator ahead of time, which also just made us waste a little bit of time there, but I cut that out so that you guys wouldn't have to wait around. But anyways, we then proceeded onwards. Most of the pulls in this particular dungeon are fairly simple. The very first time that I came here, I had a really easy time because it's just not a tough dungeon at all. I'm not saying that any of the other dungeons were that tough, but this particular one, being the third dungeon in terms of progression, at least as far as I can tell, I don't think I've missed any dungeons, but this one being the third dungeon that I've seen in terms of progression, it seemed to be a lot easier than the previous two, if I'm to be completely honest. Now, you guys will also see me use a couple of cross skills, which is something that I wasn't even aware of until I just took a break and like really delved into Final Fantasy XIV, because before, you know, I played it for the first impressions videos, and then I kind of rushed a couple of instance videos to show you guys what the instances were like, but I hadn't really delved into the mechanics all that much, so I didn't really check out all the cross skill stuff, and now you guys are seeing me actually use a cross skill ability from the Pugilist, which is the Haymaker. I'm going to be talking some more about the Haymaker in a couple of seconds. For most of these pulls, though, I wanted to tell you that if you're playing as a Marauder, usually what you got to do is you just got to pull, and after you do the pull, you want to try and run past the mobs and then turn around and just do 2 overpowers, which is the AoE ability of the Marauder, and you should pretty much have solid aggro on them for the rest of the fight. And then you just, like, you know, alternate between targets if needed be, make sure that nobody over aggroes you, whatever. But the one problem with this strategy is that overpower eats up a lot of TP. Now, something that you noticed here is we ran past that intersection there. There was a treasure back there, but unfortunately my healer was just like running ahead of me, and I was like, fine, I'll keep going on ahead and skip the treasure. Although you guys shouldn't really skip those treasures, because there is a chance that there might be valuable loot in there. Now, this all depends on whether or not you need loot. Like, for instance, me, I don't really think I need any particular loot from this instance, because I've over-leveled this instance at this point. Actually, I don't over-level it because the instances in Final Fantasy XIV, they cap your level to make sure that it is somewhat challenging, but I am probably over-geared because they don't cap your gear. This is one of the pulls that I like because that guy kind of comes off of a wall, which I think it's fairly neat. So now, let's talk about the macros that I'm using here. So I'm using a couple of macros, namely macros for Heavy Swing, Skull Sunder, and Maim. And what those macros have is essentially they have built-in Haymaker and Mercy Stroke. Now, at the time, this seemed like a good idea. And what is Haymaker? Some of you guys might be wondering. Haymaker is a Pugilist skill, which is a cross skill that Marauders can use as well. What Haymaker does is, for starters, it's really cheap in terms of TP, which is really good because, like I said, as a Marauder, I blow through TP like nobody's business. I just completely go crazy on it, particularly if I have to do overpowers like I'm doing right now. You'll even notice I'll starve myself on TP because we had a couple of additional aggros that I wasn't counting on. But Haymaker costs only 40 TP, and what Haymaker does is it slows your enemies. And the slow effect basically affects their attack speed, which is really cool. I mean, if you're a tank, you want to limit the damage that you're receiving as much as you can as well. So Haymaker, I found, was a really great way to do it. However, something that I would definitely not advise you is to macro Haymaker into like your three main abilities. The way that I have it right now is actually I have Haymaker assigned to my heavy swing, so that whenever Haymaker is available, it's going to do Haymaker. As a matter of fact, I have Mercy Stroke assigned to that as well. So it's like it goes, if Mercy Stroke is available, do Mercy Stroke. If not, try Haymaker. And if Haymaker is not available, then go for Heavy Swing. At the time of this particular dungeon, I even had Tomahawk bound in there as well, which is definitely a bad idea. Now, theoretically, assuming that you don't have any issues with latency or anything like that, you would be perfectly fine with using Tomahawk on your Heavy Swing macro, because it would only really use the Tomahawk if the enemies were far away. The problem is, due to latency, I had a couple of times where I was point blank with the enemies, Heavy Swing is the priority in my macro, and he would still do Tomahawk, because I don't know exactly why I would do it, but I'm assuming it is due to latency, so I completely removed that. But you will still see me do Tomahawk, stupid Tomahawks every now and then in this run. And for those of you who don't even know how Marauders work, Tomahawk is the skill in which he throws the axe against the enemy. That is a really good skill for pulling, not such a good skill to use when the mob is already on top of you, because it is essentially a waste of TP. I don't even know what TP stands for, by the way, which is I guess something that is weird. I'm assuming it's maybe tactical points. I don't know. But anyways, we're continuing through the dungeon here. I mean, these are all pretty simple pulls. Like I said, it's just tank and spank for every single pull in this dungeon. I don't think you should have much of a problem. In case you're playing with a Gladiator, I don't know exactly how Gladiators handle AoE threat. I played with the Gladiator all the way up to level 17, and I tanked one instance as a Gladiator. Didn't really suit me as well, because here's the thing. I mean, I'm going to do a full video dedicated to this, to like talking about Gladiator versus Marauder and all that. But I had some issues dealing with AoE aggro, and on top of that, I noticed that it's like you have to be, well, you don't have to be, but it works a lot better if people know what to expect of a Paladin versus a Gladiator versus a Marauder, because a Marauder is a much better tank for pugs, in my opinion, because easier to generate threat, easier to pick up stray adds. Just there's a lot of stuff that tilted stuff, a lot of stuff that tilted my choice towards the Marauder. There's also the fact that the Marauder wields a big ass axe, but then again, the Gladiator had a pretty sweet shield bash, but at the end of the day, I had to kind of like weigh the pros and the cons. Anyways, this dungeon is pretty much a whole bunch of what you guys are watching right now. It's just like AoE mobs down until you finally get to a boss. There are 3 bosses to this particular dungeon, if I remember correctly. I think it's 3 bosses, and neither of them are all that challenging, to be honest. And again, you guys might say, oh, that's because you are overgearing the instance, it's because Marauders are overpowered. I don't really know, but it's like, like I told you guys, the first time I came through here was not a big problem either. So it's got a couple of sections that you have to blow up every now and then, like this. You have to pick up some fire powder, and then you blow up the section. Now, something that I really like about dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV is you guys notice that purple glow before we enter here. That basically marks that you're about to begin a boss fight, and in 15 seconds after the boss fight begins, the door closes. Now, the door closing part is not necessarily something that, how should I put this? It is not something that I really love, but I do feel that it is a necessity, because otherwise there would be nothing to prevent players from dying, respawning, and coming back into the boss fight. but it is definitely cool that you know exactly where the limit is. Like, after you go through here, there's going to be a boss fight, and that is something that this particular MMO has a lot in terms of practicality, because it's like in other MMOs you guys might think, oh, but it doesn't look pretty, the fact that there's a purple thing on the ground there. It's like, I would be willing to sacrifice how pretty the damn thing looks in favor of practicality, and this MMO definitely does a lot of that. It is very practical, it is very straightforward in a lot of its mechanics, which is pretty cool. So this boss fight is kind of just like a rush. It's more about the healer than necessarily the tank, because stuff just dies so fast that the only thing you really have to pay attention to is make sure that the healer can do his job, and the rest of it is just like scramble and kill stuff. Eventually they're going to be spawning a much larger target, but even he is pretty weak sauce. So, and this is one of the boss fights of this particular dungeon. So as you can see, not particularly challenging. They're going to keep on spawning these Spriggan sifters, and no, they don't spawn the other one actually. I was going to say the coppers too, but no, it's just the Spriggan sifters and the Flambeau? I have no idea what the hell a Flambeau even is. And now finally they're going to drop the big boy, Kotos. But as you guys can see, Kotos doesn't really have all that much health. As a matter of fact, the only thing that is somewhat challenging about it is getting the aggro right away before people start nuking him into oblivion, and even that is just like, whatever, you don't really care about that, just like wail into him. Now, the rotation that I'm currently using is heavy swing, then maim, and then heavy swing and skull sunder. You guys might be wondering why the maim. Well, maim actually increases your damage by 20% as well, so and that affects all your other skills. Now, Maim's potency is 190, whereas Skull Sunder is 200, and it increases your aggro on your enemies. So I would figure like the best rotation that you can possibly do is Heavy Swing into Maim into Heavy Swing into Heavy Sunder. Obviously, you want to put Fracture in there as well, but Fracture, I usually just save it for the bigger fights, because in these minions, Fracture doesn't make that much of a difference, and it's kind of a waste of a cooldown, because the global cooldown in Final Fantasy XIV is actually a lot bigger than what I'm used to. I mean, in World of Warcraft, you were able to just spam abilities all over the place. As a matter of fact, I think you still are able. But that was my experience from a tanking standpoint. That was the MMO that I've played the most. So I was somewhat used to just spamming stuff all over the place. And in Final Fantasy XIV, it doesn't necessarily work like that. You can't really just spam abilities, and, well, I mean, you can spam abilities, but the fact is, the abilities aren't going to come off any faster than your global cooldown, so it doesn't really matter how much you spam it. And spending one global cooldown to get a fracture off, not really something that I would prioritize unless the fight is going to take a little bit longer than usual, at which point I'm like, okay, I got solid threat in here, now I'm going to switch, I'm going to put some fracture on him as well, and I'm going to start doing a rotation that's more akin to DPS and threat as opposed to just threat. So for most of these pulls, I just focus on the threat itself, and I don't care that much about fracture, even though it is definitely something that you can work into your rotation, but I just kind of save it for the more prolonged fights. Now here we're actually pretty close to another boss fight. We're just killing a couple of these dudes because these guys, actually not these ones, but the bomb-looking guys with the flamey, bomby-looking things. Those guys have Powder Blast, which we need to gather in order to open the next section, so we have to tank through everything in this particular vicinity. There's also a couple of treasures spread around, I believe, which can give you gear, or can give you potions, can give you whatever. Here you see an example of what me trying to practice on my pulling. It's just like going through the mobs and then turning around and then doing the overpower thing. It's just, it takes me a while to get used to doing stuff like this with a pad. And my intention is to continue to just play with the gamepad because I think it's more fun that way. But that can be just me. I mean, it's a perfectly personal thing whether or not you enjoy the pad. One of the things that I still need to work on as well is getting that snap aggro, because sometimes stuff gets away from me, and I do notice that I have a little bit of trouble getting stuff back onto me. Because the combat in Final Fantasy XIV is overall a lot slower paced than it is in other MMOs that I've played previously, because in other MMOs you can spam skills and skills actually just come off almost as fast as you can spam them, and in Final Fantasy it's not exactly like that. You need to be more, you need to ponder your actions a little bit more, and you need to think about stuff a little bit more, because once you lose aggro on something, the consequences, like fixing that problem, takes you a lot longer than usually it takes me in other titles. Something that you see me do from time to time as well is just using the stun. I mean, I use stun quite a bit, even though I'm not using it in this particular fight, but it's fairly useful, particularly if something goes away from you. A lot of the times, you can almost consider that stunning is another form of tanking, even, because if something runs away from you and it's about to die, and it runs into the party, it's like you don't even need to worry about getting aggro. You just need to make sure to control the damage that it's doing to your party, so stunning at that point is actually fairly useful. Now, I'm using a bunch of cooldowns that are not only for my class, because like I told you guys, I've been playing a bunch of other classes, and as a matter of fact, I would have to say that playing multiple classes actually benefits you quite a lot. Like, for instance, the default cooldown, defensive cooldown that you have with the Marauder is Foresight, which is actually my #1 cooldown that I use. Wait, but before I go into cooldowns, let's talk about this boss a little bit. This boss is actually really interesting because they're spawning two types of monsters here. You have to use like this dynamite type looking thing, which will spawn one of these blasting caps. However, you can't kill the blasting cap like my fellow Ramirez Dark Soul over here did. You're not supposed to kill them. You're supposed to let them wander around, and eventually they will explode. And when they start exploding, the tank then has to move this slime ball that I'm fighting against here into the explosion radius, because that is going to be the only thing that actually damages the giant slime ball. Now, the thing is, there are other monsters that sometimes spawn, and they in turn come to attack the blasting cap. So you got to be careful about the other monsters that are going to be spawning to try and attack the blasting cap. Like here, once again, we see that someone attacked the blasting cap and killed it, and I'm just like, well, I guess this might take a while because people aren't getting the strategy. But then again, that's the thing. When I'm playing on the console, usually I don't necessarily always have a keyboard, and even if I do have a keyboard, it's like I don't feel like explaining. I'm lazy. I'm completely lazy, which is a terrible thing, because you really should try and explain stuff to people. I've actually had a keyboard connected during this session because I was working on the macros, but I'm just so used to only having the controller that I never even typed anything. But I should have told them, don't attack the bomb-looking things, because we need those to get rid of this mob. As you can see, he now has divided himself into 2 Icarus Ires, and once again, it's just rinse and repeat. They're going to spawn another bomb thing. The bomb thing will eventually explode, and once the bomb thing explodes, you want to make sure that the Icarus Ires are on top. And as you can see there, that is one of the minions that spawned that is coming to attack the blasting cap, the Spriggan Quencher or whatever. Then again, that one was about to explode, so it didn't really make that much of a difference. Once again, it now divided itself one more time. There are now 4, and it's going to divide itself one more time before we can actually kill it. So obviously the tank's job throughout most of this fight is just kite this thing around and make sure to position it properly when the ball spawns. Everyone else doesn't really need to do anything until basically the bomb explodes this. As well as they need to keep track of the mobs that are going to be spawning in order to attack. As you can see there, the Spriggan is attacking the blasting cap. You need to make sure to take care of that Spriggan Quencher before he kills the blasting cap, since we need the blasting cap to explode the Icarus Ire. This is going to be the last one. Boom. I'm not exactly sure how Ramirez Dark Soul got himself killed there, but at this point you can just take these out, AoE them down. As you can see, I mean, I'm AoEing them down with Overpower, which is one of the weakest abilities that Marauders have in terms of dealing damage. After that, going to be picking up some more fire sand. We got another powder chamber, another blasting device, and you're going to be moving onward. The scenery is going to be changing a little bit, though, which is pretty cool. I like it when they switch up the scenery, because, I mean, the whole mine thing is cool at the start, but after you've been inside a mine for quite some time, it's like, look, a mine is a mine. It looks exactly like a mine, and we're sick of the mine aspect. So it's pretty cool that they changed the scenery a little bit. Gonna activate the blasting device here. Boom, and now we have this more like, it's still a cave, but it's more like a moist cave type of deal. And we got a couple of new monsters. These are still the same deal, essentially. You tank through them. I'm not sure if they ever had to like actually use marks on these with crowd control, although that would be a more efficient way of doing it. Like, for instance, if you were playing with a paladin, I would definitely advise having someone that would handle CC and stuff like that, because I keep saying paladin because eventually gladiators are going to become paladins, but yeah, if you have a gladiator with you, having someone that can do a little bit of CC is definitely helpful, particularly because the paladin also has less health pool, but he's got more defenses, so it kind of balances out. But yeah, that stuff can be useful. So now I'm going to dive straight through here. I'm not sure if this is the best path that you can possibly take through here, but it is the path that I'm used to taking. I've always came this way for whatever reason, and it makes things easier to control, because it's not like these things are going to go anywhere from here. And this is the path that I kind of know, the fastest path to get around to get to the boss. Although I do know that there are some treasures spread around throughout this this particular zone, so going this way sometimes makes me miss those treasures. But it's like, at this point, when you get to this point, you're just like, look, just get me to the final boss and let's get this over with. Because even though instancing is really cool, and you guys know that I'm a sucker for running instances, I mean, you get a little bit tired. Particularly this instance, it's like I ran this instance, I don't know, 5 times by now or something. So, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this video because I have 2 instances that I have to run, and I'm going to start recording the next instances live, which is going to be pretty cool. Now, guys, I'm not sure if you guys noticed there, but that is a move that I really enjoy doing, which is whenever something spawns far away from you or runs away, just kind of like switch targets, move into tomahawk, boom, and just get a tomahawk in so that you get instant aggro on it. I think that's pretty cool, and that is something that definitely you guys should practice if you haven't really mastered it yet. I'm just assuming that not everybody is like someone who has tanked in the past in my commentary, so I kind of like to do commentary as simple as I possibly can to kind of explain people and maybe ease people into tanking so that there's more tanks out there. In case you guys are curious, since I've been experiencing other classes and whatnot, in case you guys are curious about the classes that I'm planning on working on mainly, I want to have primary, definitely Marauder into warrior. Secondary, I want to have a white mage, so we're going to go conjurer into white mage. It's conjurer, right? Yeah, conjurer. We're going to go conjurer into white mage, and I want to have a third class, which is probably going to be a monk, because I actually enjoy the monk quite a bit. I think it's a pretty cool class. Usually I don't tend to enjoy like rogue type classes, but for whatever reason, the monk, the whole martial arts thing, it kind of won me over. Again, you saw a mistake tomahawk there because, like I said, the macro isn't working as well as I would like. But you probably won't be seeing that mistake anymore in future videos because, like I said, I've adjusted the macro. So the only thing really left now is defeat Geigs the Great. And this is a boss that is actually really easy. You guys might have noticed me typing out the amazing strategy that we applied to this boss while the cinematic was going on. And the strategy is essentially that, just bum rush the boss, just do as much damage as you possibly can to the boss. Because I'm not exactly sure what is supposed to happen in this boss fight, but essentially the boss is going to try to free people, and as he frees people, they're going to try and dig through the tunnels. Now, I'm not sure what happens when they dig through the tunnels because every single time I've been here, we've always killed the boss before anything really bad happened. So I don't really know what happens. As a matter of fact, I sometimes almost wish that a group would fail so that I would know what happens when this boss gets his way. Because as you can see, he now breaks a boulder. As he breaks that particular boulder, you'll also see me rotate the boss here so that Ramirez can have the back. because obviously if you're a monk, you want to be in the back because it works kind of like a rogue, backstabs, all that. But you'll notice that a minion came out of the hole, but he instantly went to the other side of the room, and he now attempts to break through another wall. And this is just weird because I don't understand what's going to happen. I mean, look at how fast we're killing this boss. You know, clearly that minion is not going to release another minion, but then again, another minion approaches, and guess what he's going to do? He's going to join the other guy on the other side of the room, and they're going to keep trying to break through a wall. And it's like, well, I don't really see much of a point in trying to stop you guys from breaking that wall if we can just kill the boss instead and not even have to deal with them. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what the deal is. I don't know exactly what happens if they actually break it through. I remember the first time we came here, I tried like dealing damage to the other guys, but we killed a couple of them. They just kept on coming, and I was just like, this is pointless. Let's kill the boss. And as you can see, 3 guys came out of there, 3 guys went into the wall, and in the meantime, we've got Guys the Great down. Anyways, that has been Copperbell Mines. I'm going to be doing a couple of more videos for Final Fantasy XIV on the channel, namely tanking discussion as well as maybe some healer discussion, and definitely all of the dungeons that I happen to run with my Marauder from here on out. As per usual, leave me your comments, feedback, all that kinds of good stuff in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.